Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm with Gemma Wade today. Gemma's cooking class company is called You Say Tomato.
Yeah.
And she has a really interesting story, so I'm excited to chat today. And I'm a massive foodie.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited.
So we can just talk about food.
Yeah, to just chat about food for an hour.
Yeah,
So,
perfect.
yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. You have a great story of how you got into business and just your life anyway has taken a few twists and turns in the past few years. So tell us about yourself and how you got into doing it.
Oh my goodness. So I, born and raised in Manchester, come from a family of cooks, but just normal cooks. Spent a lot of time in the kitchen when I was growing up. And when I went to university, I was desperate to get a job in advertising or media, something like that, because it all sounded very exciting. Got a job in advertising, wasn't quite as exciting as I thought it would be, but it was good and it was really good fun. Learnt loads, spent 10 years working in advertising, moved down to London, worked in a big agency down there, and my clients were people like Cancer Research UK, Toyota, L'Oreal, so really big, juicy clients to work on, really long hours. You work hard, play hard, really good fun. I would never used to get home until about 9 o'clock at night, and the one thing that used to sort of ground me at the end of the day was to come home and cook, which I know some people think is strange, but I'd come home and during the day often I hadn't really felt like I'd achieved that much, because you're part of this big team and you'd be chipping away at something, but you didn't really ever finish anything in a day. Yeah. And what I loved about cooking was that I would come home and within half an hour I could go from having a pile of ingredients to having dinner. And it felt like just like a nurturing thing to do, but also just satisfying to do what I wanted to do and nobody else was interfering. So I just make dinner, and that's what I enjoyed doing. And I just loved, I've always been interested in food, and I think I sort of came of age when Jamie Oliver was kind of kicking off. So me and him are very similar age, and when his first TV show came out, that opened my eyes to ingredients I'd never heard of and just a bit more of a casual way of cooking, because until then it had been very sort of Delia Smith, very proper. So I just love cooking, love reading about it. Fast forward, had a baby, was about to go back to work in advertising, and back then, not like it is now, they were really resistant to any kind of flexible working. And I just, living in London, you've probably got a commute of an hour each way before you even get to work. And the thought of leaving a baby at 7 in the morning and not seeing him again until 7:30 at night just wasn't worth it. My husband got offered a job in America. He worked at a tech company, worked at eBay. And we just were in a position where we'd found out we were pregnant with our second one. We were living in a tiny flat, and it was either move out of London and then have a huge commute, or move to America. So we moved to America. And it seemed, it was just, in hindsight, we were mental, because we had I was pregnant and we had a 1-year-old, and it's not an ideal time to move away from your whole support network to a country we knew nobody in, and it's an 11-hour flight. It's not an easy place to go to. Yeah. But anyway, we did it, and the first few months were really, really hard, settling in, all that kind of thing. But then, after a while, had my second baby. When he was about 6 months old, I was just desperate to do something. I loved being a mum, but I didn't feel like that was all I could do. I wanted to do something else. I wanted to use my brain. I wanted to share things that I'd spent 10 years climbing up the ladder learning in advertising. And one night over a bottle of wine, when most of our life decisions usually happen, we were sitting in the garden and I was moaning about I couldn't work out what to do and childcare and all that kind of stuff. And my husband was saying, well, why don't you do cooking classes? And I just thought, well, I could, but me being me, I put up loads of barriers, like, well, I can't do it because I'd have to find somewhere to rent. It'd cost too much money to set up. How do I, all the barriers that I think a lot of women tend to do. Mm-hmm. And each of those barriers was like, well, no, just do this. And then I was speaking to my mum about it, and she was like, well, why don't you just do it from your kitchen? And it's so stupid that it seems so obvious to her, but to me, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah. And we were living in a rental kitchen, so it wasn't as nice as this. It was, this kind of very 1990s American kitchen. But yeah, so I set up a Facebook page, which obviously was free and didn't take much know-how, and word just kind of got out. So my first class overran by about an hour and a half because I'd worked out how long all the cooking would take, but I hadn't factored in the questions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was just the most enormous, learning curve. But people loved it because it was something that no one else was doing, and I teach in a very normal way. We'll end up talking about all sorts of different things that aren't related to food. In my classes I usually have sort of 8 people sitting around watching me cook, and then they eat everything and have a glass of wine, so it's really sociable. But I very quickly realised that a lot of the things that I just knew instinctively, most people didn't know about cooking. I think there's a huge gap in knowledge. So the level I've pitched myself at is not, you don't come to my classes to learn how to make MasterChef-y sort of food. There is a market for that, and there are people who do that at cooking schools. But I'm much more interested in helping real people with real lives get dinner on the table, but it tastes delicious, and them not waste food, not waste money, not waste time going to the shops. I totally get the fact that most people haven't got enough time, maybe don't know what they're doing, and have got to feed people who are eating at different times of the day, picky kids, all that kind of stuff. So all my recipes come from all those insights. And I've now done 6 years of classes and had about 5,000 people through my classes. So every single one of them, every question they've asked is now stored in my head. So when I'm writing a recipe or thinking, is this a good recipe to share? I've always got that kind of sense check of people saying, knowing that some people aren't going to... I know that in America, most people don't like lamb, weirdly, because it's too strong. So I tend not to teach things with lamb in America. There's certain flavours that I know that some people really struggle with. And also I know that everybody loves a one-pan thing now. The minute I say anything that's one pan, everyone's like, woohoo! So I've kind of, over time, I've kind of tailored what I do.
Cool.
So that's kind of... I've gone on for ages, sorry.
No, it's all good stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. A great example of how you can gradually learn over time your ideal audience and what your customer actually wants and is looking for, and you've stored all them questions and you can anticipate what your customer wants now before they've even told you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's a great place to get to when you're a business owner, especially with a service.
Yeah.
Especially when someone's turning up and they might not know what they're getting, but you know what they need to get out of it.
Exactly. And it's funny because, when I was in advertising, I spent so many evenings, it was always on an evening, sitting on the other side of, those mirrors when people do focus groups.
Yeah.
So if you've ever been in a focus group, you basically, as the person who's in the focus group, you'll sit around and chat about something. There's a mirror with a bunch of people from the advertising agency and the client watching what you say. And we were all about, let's get insights to drive our business. That all our advertising campaigns came from insights. But actually, so that I think was always in me of you have to listen to what people want, and regardless of what you want to offer, you have to offer what people want. Otherwise, there's no point just doing what you want to do. And the lovely thing is, I feel like every single class I do is like a focus group, because every single class I learn something that people don't know, or something that people are having an issue with, or somebody will mention a new ingredient that they've tried, or so it's just constantly information going in, and I get to use that.
Yeah, amazing. It must have been quite isolating and lonely moving to a new country on your own without your support network. Your husband's working. Do you think that played a part in why you craved setting up a business, because it was your own thing, and you've almost, with your clients and your customers, you almost cultivated your own community over there?
Definitely.
Was there a lot of mindset struggles and confidence issues, and how did it feel setting up your own business somewhere you don't know anyone?
Yeah.
You've got no immediate support network around you.
Yeah, it could make me cry. I think it was such a hard time. So, and it sounds daft because I'm sure everyone's like, oh, poor you moved to California. But, I left, I had the most amazing gang of mates in London who were my girls. We'd all been single together, we'd all met our husbands together, we'd all had babies together. We'd been out, we'd carried each other home, we'd been to each other's weddings. We were just tight as. So leaving them, and there were people that I could answer the phone and they could tell by my voice if I was having a bad day, and they'd be like, right, I'm coming around with a bottle of wine. Or, when I had a newborn, we were all at different stages of babies. So they would like text me and be like, okay, you're 2 weeks in, this is probably happening. And I'd be
Yeah.
like, oh my God, thank God, I thought I was going mad. So I had that, and my mum and dad were, you know, an hour and a half away on the train. I'm really close to my mum and dad. And leaving that and moving somewhere where not only physically was it a long way away, but, you know, just I couldn't even pick up the phone to my mum because of the time difference.
Yeah.
So some days I was having a really bad day and it was the middle of the night for her, and same with my friends. And when we first moved there, I did all the things you're supposed to do. Like I joined these like mother and baby groups, but the way that parenting was done there was quite different to how it was in England. At first, the people I met anyway. In time, I met people who had much more of a similar mindset. But, you know, I left kind of mum friends in London. We'd all worked and were planning on going back to work. A lot of people in creative industries. We were all quite sarcastic. We all kind of laughed about the madness of it all. And then I went to America, and initially the people I met, I did meet other people later on, but a lot of the people met, everything was awesome, and they were creating memories, and it was all very positive, which I struggled with because I wasn't feeling very positive, and there was nowhere in those groups that I could say, do you know what, I'm having a really shit time, because everyone else was making out like it was amazing. But then I met a group of English expat mums who became it's just crazy because of Silicon Valley, which is where we lived. It just brings in people from all over the world. So actually what was lovely, there were a lot of, you know, refugees is what we used to call ourselves. So people who had no family. So we all kind of became each other's family. And there was a couple of girls who, if they listen to this, will probably remember there was a day that I went for coffee with them, and my youngest one was like 4 weeks old, I think, and my oldest one was 1.5. And I walked in and I'd kind of got myself there, and I was like, and then the minute I walked in, they were like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, whoa! And they were both had older kids, so they totally got it. I just remember they were like, "It's going to get better, don't worry." And I had that then. But then when I started the business, yeah, you're right, I kind of made my own gang, which is kind of cool. So then, and it became, I got to meet some of my now best friends. So, you know, as time went on, I met the mums, the American mums and the English mums over there who had much more of a similar outlook to me and were more honest and all that kind of thing. And some of them are people who came to, the first time I met them was when they came to a cooking class, and we just clicked. So now when I go back and teach in America, I'm going back in a month, I actually stay with a girl who I first met in a cooking class. I stay at her house. Another girl who I met, I always end up going, and, you know, we'll have drinks and catch up. So it's lovely. It's a really nice way to meet people. Yeah.
Apart from that core group, was there anything else personally that you really learnt on in that time when you were having like a really shitty day and you were presenting these classes and you had to appeal to a completely new set of people, because like you say, more positivity, like you can't be sarcastic because there's just that language barrier. Sarcasm isn't as much of a thing, which I quickly realised, because people are like, wow, you're just rude. Like, no. They think you're being like really mean to your friends.
Exactly. Or like my son would drop something, I'd be like, oh my God, he's such an idiot. They're like, like they'd look at me as if I was like, and I was like, no, I don't mean he's an idiot. He just, you know, it's just what you say. And also the self-deprecating thing that I think in England we, you know, someone says, oh, I love your dress, you're like, oh, it's from Primark, or it's I feel a bit fat in it. Whereas over there, someone says, I love your dress, and you're like, thanks. And that was something I'd never done, you know. And actually, you know, being in California, and especially where we were, it's such a positive place, and the reason that so many amazing new businesses are happening there is because, unlike in England, where I think we quite like to knock people down and question things, over there they're just like, brilliant, awesome, how can I help you? You know, if you've got a business idea. Whereas, you know, I think over here you say, I'm going to set up this business, and people are a bit like, have you thought about this? Or, ooh,
what if it doesn't work?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas over there it's much more positive. So I don't think I've answered the question. I think
no,
but
that was really
different things. Sorry.
No, but it is really interesting to talk about because for me, I could just never imagine what it would be like, not only to live in America, but to set up a business in America.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it was, so I think there were days when I was like, why am I doing this? Because I could have just been a stay-at-home mum, which is a bloody hard job in itself. And, you know, I was creating a job that allowed me to kind of do that, but also work, which in itself is quite tricky because people didn't really know who I was. Like, am I a stay-at-home mum or am I a working mum? Because I was at the preschool gates or because I was I'm at school pickup, people don't really know, you know. Whereas like the mums who are working in an office from like 8 till 6 tend to have a lot in common with other mums who do that. And, you know, it's hard to kind of find your gang in that. But, you know, when I was... That didn't answer the question at all either, sorry. No, but when I was setting up over there, the lovely thing was being in Silicon Valley that, you know, tech-wise, everyone around you is creating solutions to problems. You know, every business that starts up in Silicon Valley pretty much has to have as part of their mantra, like, we're here to solve this problem, we're here to make this better. You know, Uber is there to make the taxi experience better. You know, all those different companies start to make a problem go away or make it easier to deal with. So, you know, everyone I met was in that mindset of, you know, if I said to them, oh, I'm trying to do this, they kind of got that, they had that entrepreneurial idea, they knew how to solve problems, they had great contacts. So, you know, I'd mention something, they'd be like, oh, I know a guy who's doing such and such, or I know a girl who works at Apple who could help you with that, or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was really good. But yeah, I mean, there was days, I used to always teach my cooking classes at night, and quite often, you know, I'd be putting kids to bed, and then 10 minutes later, I had a house full of people. It was like red lippy on, hair back, I've had no sleep. I can, you know, but then that's just, nothing's ever perfect. And I think if I'd have waited for a time when I'd felt like everything was a bit more in control and perfect, that time would never come.
Yeah.
And actually by doing it in the tough circumstances of being sleep deprived and having a child who's not quite settling to go to bed and you've got people arriving, that's when you learn how to cope with, you know. And also in the same ways when I'm teaching, sometimes I forget something's in the oven and it gets a bit overcooked.
Yeah.
You know, and you just have to wing it and get around it. And actually I think that's what people really liked about what I did, because I wasn't perfect, and if something gets a bit burnt in class, I'll kind of either make a joke of it or scrape a bit off. But mostly what I do is say, well, actually, if this happens to you, this is how we deal with it. Yeah. You know, and that's what people need, because mistakes happen, you have to learn to deal with it.